Hi, I'm Dr. Craig Wright from Enchain, Tulip Trading, advisor for Tal, a few other things, so lots of bits and pieces. So I created Bitcoin following my studies on my Master of Law program in Northumbria, which completed in 2008. As part of that, my thesis was actually on internet intermediaries and payment systems, of course. And like the UNICITROL, the UN's guidelines on electronic commerce was from 1996, because digital cash, digital currencies are not new. So sitting there going, it's crypto, so what? It's funding. Existing laws already cover funding for anything you can imagine. So as soon as judges figure out that this is just a funding exchange, it's already regulated. The biggest fallacy I'd see is the use of the word decentralized. Bitcoin's not about decentralized in the way that people say. Peer-to-peer network is not the node structure. It is Alice gives to Bob. Now, the time server, the nodes, are a different peer-to-peer network. They're a fully connected, interconnected graph, but most people don't need to run that. On top of that, just going, it's decentralized. Well, that's like idiocracy with it's full of electrolytes. Well, so what? You have to explain why. So the Occupy movement in 2008 fell apart because there were no leaders. And sitting there going, we're an organization, we're decentralized. So what? If you don't have leadership, you lose direction. So you need leadership. So this idea, it's all decentralized, centralized, except you need a balance. You need a mixture between law and order and chaos and anarchy, and it's neither is good. Both balance. So this idea that Bitcoin will enable a system without law, no, it won't. But the balance is you don't want too much. If you go too far, the authoritarian system in China or something like this, then you stifle everything. But if you have no rules, then nobody has protection and won't create and won't feel safe. So you need to find that balance, and it's always a tension. And the difficulty is you want just decentralized enough, just centralized enough. So sitting there going, this is good, this is bad, either extreme are bad. You want a balance thing. It's the old yin and yang. So you need to find the structure in the middle that works for your organization. A lot of the crypto industry don't want me to exist because they're trying to do this coders law thing. Now, I'm the issuer of Bitcoin. It's very simple. I created it, a person. I'm bound under law. Bitcoin's a unilateral contract system. So it's a contract with someone. None of this is no person. Now, by saying Satoshi doesn't exist, that Craig Wright's not Satoshi, that he's nothing, that he's a figment, a myth, creates a scenario where they can go, us in Ethereum or Polkadot, we also are not issuers, but they are. So they created something that has value. Now, shares since 1984 have been dematerialized, which means they're a token on a database. That database is sometimes distributed. The Australian Stock Exchange ran about 27 nodes around the country, which was more decentralized than BTC. BTC only have 15 nodes. So the reality here is sitting there going, it's decentralized, so what? But they don't want a person. If there's a person, then there's a focus to actually say, this is a legal managed asset under the law. First of all, the protocol's fixed. So that's an important aspect. Now, when I said this back at the beginning in 2010, there's a reason for that. We haven't split off. Bitcoin doesn't change. Now, if you want something decentralized, you cannot have it able to be changed. If a small group of developers, whether it's Ethereum, Polkadot, BTC, can change the protocol, they can set who wins and loses. If they don't like you, they can make something that breaks your product and no one else's. Now that's control. that's what we're trying to move away from. And you can see the attraction. What was it? George III actually had a famous quote to do with Washington. When Washington became president, George III actually said, if he steps away from this position and doesn't become king, he is the most remarkable man in history. And that's the point. No one wants to give up power. Well, not no one, but very few people. And it's tempting. So even for myself, it's tempting to be able to change things to fit myself. So the only way to do that is to take away that power, to say, this is the protocol. If you make a transaction today, it works in 100 years. The end. So that's the first aspect. We need to create something where everyone is treated equally, including the person who founded and created the system. Next, it matters to have this scale. Cost matters. So my primary focus is to make this grow, and I want by the end of the decade to handle 10 billion transactions a second. And I want that even at peak. So it might be peaks of 1 trillion transactions a second. Phenomenally large numbers, and at very low cost, at a fraction of a cent. So I want it to go down to it's 1/100th of a cent now, but I want it 1,000th or lower. When I released Bitcoin in 2009, it was actually IPv6 compatible right from the first. Now people took that out going, this is not how Bitcoin should work, but the reality is the way that it scales, the way that it should work, the way that it's peer-to-peer is direct communication. Now in V4, most people go through NAT or translation gateways and you don't talk directly. That makes it difficult and less secure. In V6, your IP address, their IP address, you can secure both endpoints. You can have VPN instantly between both sides. So that changes just all the communications. So all of the Bitcoin's not encrypted. Well, you don't care because the IPv6 layer actually does the encryption for you. So you don't need to build it into Bitcoin, which means that people don't need to have that level of security knowledge and cryptographic knowledge to be a coder of a simple application. So IPv6 opens up the opportunity to make all sorts of new exchanges. The nature of, say, a video, if I'm not interested, I'll stop watching and I can stop paying at the same time. So using payment channels, I'll just, as I'm reading, as I'm watching, I will end, and when I end, I stop paying for it. So a lot of times you find material like journalistic articles, and the first paragraph is really interesting, but they've got another 3,000 words, and it's just fluff. So rather than opening up more than that and going, you can actually stop. Now, this is also interesting for content creators. It gives a focus on quality. So you're going to not now care about how many words do I get, but how many people are reading what I'm writing. And I'm going to get paid by actually having engaging content. Getting everything scaled is super critical. So I want to see people making payment channels where they're actually doing 1/1,000,000th of a cent communications. I mean, it can actually go to that. And you sit there going, why would you bother? Because, well, this actually changes the nature of how we trade, how we communicate. Imagine sending every packet and paying 1/1,000,000th of a cent at a time. You start thinking about what you're doing, why you're doing it, who you're communicating to, even at that rate. Because if you're just allowing data to sit in the background for no reason, chewing up and polling things, maybe you want to change that. So the model of how we do the internet becomes an economic market-based model, which changes the whole system from where it was. Now, Arrow talked about transaction costs, and if we reduce those, we include people from all over the world. So in this continent here, sort of in Asia, there are lots of people in the Middle East and also India, Pakistan, etc., that earn very little money right now and can't get online because bank accounts are too expensive. Transfer between sort of different economies is too expensive, but changing that so that it's super cheap is going to open up so many opportunities for many people. The internet can already handle this. There are already dark fiber communication channels that do petabyte communications. But even with that, we can do it across multiple lines. So even today, we've developed the technology to be able to do petabyte-sized blocks in chunks that work out exactly the same in a distributed manner and still have them send very quickly. BTC have 15 nodes. The reason that they chew up a lot of electricity is those ASICs are all that they're doing. If you have to now distribute what you're investing in between ASICs and systems to process billions of transactions a second, then you find that the ASICs become a smaller and smaller component. The processing of information becomes the large cost in the network. And everyone's already got that cost. So the investment in ASICs for like a BTC network is in the order of like $5 to $10 billion for a node. So we're not talking something small. Now, it'll be a fraction of that cost to actually transmit billions of transactions a second. Those transactions for 1,000th of a cent are cheaper than anything now. So what we're building will be cheaper than Amazon does for processing today, cheaper than Salesforce, cheaper than Oracle, cheaper than Visa, cheaper than MasterCard, than the bank systems. So there is an environmental cost in paper, in the plastic notes, in the coins. If we make this as cheap as we're talking about, then the actual cost is cheaper than anything that the Earth has ever had in pure electricity cost. So if we have a system that is maybe 1,000 times cheaper than using a paper note, why have the paper note? You realize when you have a paper note, you cut down a tree to make it. So I mean, that tree has to go somewhere. They sort of pulp it up, and it's not even sort of good use because they take sort of forest quite often, sometimes virgin forest, and they plant pine because pine grows really fast, and change and make a monoculture, so they have the paper. So it would be nice to change that and go back to having old wood forests and mixed growth forest and things like this rather than paper manufacturing. Where I see this going though is the creation of completely new systems where people can trade globally. And not organizations that like DAOs, like people keep mentioning, but corporations. And there's a reason for that. Corporations are one of the greatest freedoms and protection that people have in sort of human history. A corporation allows you to actually protect the investment you have and not be liable for the losses of others. And so there are also responsibilities in that. So what we're going to move to is the ability to trade from anywhere to anywhere, machines to earn money, connection not based on ad-based media. And that's one of the big changes that is going to occur, that is going to be a big fight with Silicon Valley. I mean, the lock-in and control of advertising with Facebook, Twitter, etc. I mean, they own 80% of the global media, really. I mean, that sounds strange to people until you realize if you want to get an advertisement out there, you need to be acceptable to these people. Okay, so DAOs are partnerships. I wrote a paper about this many years ago and have a patent on it, strangely enough, but the first decentralized autonomous corporation was one that I created in 2011, which was structured for my own trust, etc., and keys around that. Now, that doesn't mean, like people think, that everyone has equal votes. The structure of my trust, the kids get different votes. When they turned 18, they had a vote. When they get a bachelor degree, they get extra votes. When they get a master's or PhD, they see the incentive model. So pass your course, go to uni, get a degree because, well, you have more say in the family company. So that's the sort of thing people have got to do. But it's not, we think about the rules after it. You want to structure things in advance. The American Constitution, people didn't just sit there and go, I mean, there've been amendments, but they didn't sort of leave it and go, we'll figure it out as we go. A bunch of people sat there and debated and set the structure in place. So if you want something to work, you need to actually structure, why are we doing this? What is our vision? What is the purpose? And this is where a lot of companies go wrong. They don't actually have that vision. They don't have the purpose. They don't have the rules, the structure. Who will get paid what? How are you going to structure it? So a DAO needs to be more than just a loose group of people sitting around going, we want to do something. It needs to be formalized and it needs to have structure, and you can't go, but that's centralized. Leadership's centralized. Yep. You can't decentralize leadership. Passion, the drive that one person can bring to an organization. Look at Apple, Steve Jobs. Apple was a basket case. Then one man, centralized, comes and reinvigorates the entire company, making it at one point the biggest company in the world for a while. So you can't just discount going, a person. You have to look at what everyone brings. And sometimes that means looking at your structure and going, what is our vision? And then selling that.
Hello, my name is Calvin Ayre. I'm the founder of CoinGeek and Ayre Group, which is a VC focused on tech investments, but significantly on using the world's most scalable public blockchain to solve big data challenges. We've always sort of had a TV look, a view of the world, but the pandemic really pushed us even harder in that direction. And I don't think we'll ever go away from that now that we've come this far. But we consider this to be a TV production where we're adding on the meeting opportunity as a tack on. So I think a lot of other conferences look at it the other way around. We're a group of people getting together to talk business, and let's grab some content as well. But we start fundamentally from the other side. We actually consider ourselves to be a TV production. BSV is a technology, pure and simple. I don't want people to get confused simply because it's a blockchain and has tokens that it's got anything to do with crypto. It's actually we consider it a utility platform. And what you're seeing right here is an ecosystem that's developing around this technology. And our agenda here is just education. It's really that simple. We want people to understand that you can solve almost unbounded big data challenges using this technology. Well, I think this technology is going to touch every facet of everybody's lives. People are going to be using it and they won't even know they're using it. And so I think the cultural significance is that it's going to create business models that weren't possible before. And that's going to be profound, I believe. On BSV, we not only want the user to own their own data, they actually can and do have that power right today. It's about storing large amounts of data on chain and then the ability to move it around with nanopayments, so basically frictionlessly moving it around. And that allows people to have control over their own data, whether it's their own personal data or, in the case of NFTs, art NFTs and their own creation. Well, the prevailing narrative out there is about crypto, that these platforms exist only for speculative token trading. I don't see any problem with that. People should be welcome to do that if that's what they want, but this technology was not invented for that. This technology was invented as a peer-to-peer electronic cash, it says in the white paper, and to scale unboundedly so that nanopayments allow it to be used for a bunch of complex data utility purposes. And our job here is to differentiate ourselves from crypto and educate people on what else you can do with this technology if you have a version of it like we do that scales unboundedly. The only way that I know that you can positively impact the environment and be in the mining business is to be on BSV, because our unbounded scaling allows us to put an unbounded amount of transactions into each block, and that creates the efficiency that we can actually look at targeted other ways that big data is managed today, and we can go in there and actually process that same volume of transactions at a lower economic impact than is currently being done. That turns BSV into the only green platform, public blockchain platform in the world. Regulation has to come, and crypto itself, ironically, the anti-regulation crypto crowd are the ones that are going to drive it, because that's where all the abuse of the public is occurring. The stuff that we're doing on the utility side, I think will actually, there's less need for regulation because a lot of it is just us managing data, so nothing's being sold to the general public in some cases. We could have an application, as an example, that's just managing some back office function for a big, huge company, and the real world almost doesn't even need to know about it. So regulation will be slower to seep into those areas than I think when you're talking about retail investors buying stuff, and like what happened with the Luna token just recently. When those kinds of things happen, that attracts regulation. I'm a fan of regulation. I think that it's going to be necessary, but a lot of people have different opinions. But like I said, in our space, on the utility space, there's no powerful forces pushing the regulators over into our area. Crypto is pulling regulation, and our utility space is going to be left alone for a long time, I think. The takeaway I would love people to understand about this technology, which is what we're trying to educate people about, is that scaling solves all problems. Scaling is the superpower of this platform that allows nano payments, and the two combined together is what allows all the data utility. Okay, so you'll see in the conference over the last couple of days that there are a few cross-chain initiatives. But what's different about BSV is because BSV is the only chain that scales unboundedly, the cross-chain initiatives really are all pretending that these other things are happening on their own chain, but really all we're doing is just managing the lack of scaling ability of all other platforms on BSV. So what we do is we just take these other tokens from other platforms, whether they're NFT tokens or other types of tokens, we just wrap them and run them on the frictionless BSV rails. And we think that's the only cross-platform solution that actually makes any sense, because all the other platforms are trying to work on sidechains, but with BSV can be the sidechain for all the other platforms. However, anybody smart will obviously see that at some point, if you can run everything on BSV, why do the other chains exist? So we'll see how it unfolds. What the Calvin Ayre Foundation is all about is my philosophy that if you are lucky enough to be successful in life, you have some kind of a duty to give back. And so that was the core start of it. And over the years, I've sort of refined my philosophy in charity in my foundation. And now I'm living in Antigua. I've focused most of my charitable work on trying to fix problems inside the little Antiguan economy, which is very rewarding, because if you're trying to fix problems in a huge economy, you don't feel like you've moved the needle. But in Antigua, you kind of feel, because it's so small, when I do something there, I kind of feel like I helped. The part of my foundation I find the most rewarding is when I can help students. I mean, one of the things we do is scholarships for kids from underprivileged families getting into private school, as an example, in Antigua. So stuff like that is very rewarding. Education is the one thing that nobody can take from you, right? So that's quite rewarding. My advice to all entrepreneurs, whether they're young or not, is that you need to do the homework to actually get the skills that you need to actually run a business. And after that, you should focus on an industry that you have some kind of interest in, because if you're working 14-hour days and it's in some industry that you absolutely hate, then that's torture. But if you're doing it in an industry that you love already, then it doesn't even feel like work. And that gives you the staying power, because starting businesses can be painful.